I have a confession, and I think that it's important for me to share this with you guys at this point on my channel because as people start to listen more to my videos and interact with me more, I think it's important for you guys to know who I am, what my story is, and why I'm even talking about the things I'm talking about. And my confession is this, is that even in the last couple of years, I have struggled to walk with the Lord. And I want to make that really clear. I'm going to talk about some things today because I want it to be understood, first of all, that you don't have to have your whole life cleaned up to come to Jesus. And I want to be honest and real about how difficult it really can be to walk with Him. And some of the struggles that I have had, even more recently. And I want to be really clear about that because my motivation for this entire channel is to be a voice for the kingdom of God. And I want the Lord to be able to use me however it is that He sees fit and how He wants to. And I want to be a voice that doesn't come across as knowing everything or having it all together or being this, I don't know, I think like detached or disconnected person from like real life. You know what I mean? And I understand that there are plenty of things that people struggle with. And for a long, long time, I've struggled with many, many things as well. And actually, a couple of years ago, I decided to kind of go rogue. And although I never completely walked away from God, I never renounced my belief in Him, I never turned my back on Him completely, I absolutely bargained with Him and told Him one night that I was just gonna kind of do what I wanted for a while because I had been so tired of playing the good Christian girl and, you know, doing the things that I really felt like He was asking me to do. But what's really funny is even in hindsight of that, like I absolutely was not obedient in that season. And there were many things, and I might talk about this more later, but there were some things in my life a few years ago that I really was devastated by when they did not come to pass. And I was really upset with God, and I thought that He basically tricked me. And I had a whole kind of like, I won't call it like a breakdown, I'll call it a breaking away, where I was just sort of like, what's the point? Like, I'm doing all these things, which I actually, like, in hindsight, kind of wasn't doing also. So, like, it wasn't really God. It was just my own disobedience. And I'll get into more of this. I'm not even sure, like, what this video is going to entail. This might be a couple of videos that kind of goes through it because there's a lot to unpack, guys. Like, there's a lot to unpack. I grew up in the church. I was young, and I believe that I would hear the Lord's voice when I was about 10 or 11. I ended up moving in with my dad, and my stepfamily were Catholic, and so I ended up going the Catholic route for a while. By 15, I was like, screw it all. By 17, I was an absolute menace. And that lasted for many years. When I was in my late 20s, I decided to start seeking who God was again, but very, very, very resistant to the whole idea. Like, I was very like tiptoe, and I struggled. I was in and I was out, and I was in and I was out, and that happened for a few years as well. By the time I was in my mid 30s, you know, I decided that it was kind of time for me to get my life together. And one of the things that I did was start going to church. And God approached me and pursued me. And again, I resisted. I was still very much doing what I wanted to do. I was, you know, still going out and partying and drinking and smoking weed and like doing all these different things. And it took time for me to break away. And the kind of person that I have been in the past is very like extreme. And I either was doing crazy town Kara behavior, or I was like completely restricting myself from everything and being very judgmental. So I teetered between being hyper legalistic, and I didn't see myself as that at the time, I was very involved in ministry. I was very involved at church. I was serving. I was in school of ministry. I was doing all these things, and I thought I was checking on the boxes and doing it all right. And but I was led away. I was like, got kind of deceived by false teaching, very entrenched in that. That was a part where I really was just like, who is God? What do I know? What am I hearing? Am I even hearing what I think I'm hearing? I questioned everything. I've had many times in my relationship with God over the years where I've like really questioned everything and like almost walked away. That happened in 2018-ish, 2018, early 2019 maybe. I still stayed with the Lord in that. I didn't, because I allowed him to like teach me and show me where I had gone astray. But when I left Colorado and I went back to North Carolina in 2020, I ended up being on a sabbatical, and I'll probably talk about that another time too, because that was a pretty crazy time. But the Lord kind of brought me back to himself then, okay? Not that I was like away from him, but I was in this very weird place of like, again, highly legalistic, very judgmental, very religious minded. It was like, you have to X, Y, Z or else this, and that is, I was just not, I didn't understand Jesus. I'll just say that, okay? I didn't really understand him. And what the crazy thing is I was leading ministry. I was very involved in youth ministry. I was leading youth ministry. I thought I had it all together. I thought I had a very good understanding. And I won't say that I didn't understand some things, because obviously I did, but I was also still very unhealed. And I was bringing a lot of baggage from my past, a lot of my unhealed trauma, a very dysregulated nervous system, which I will talk more about nervous system regulation and healing and shadow and all that kind of stuff on other videos down the road, I'm sure. But I was very, very unhealed at that time, and I just didn't know it. I was completely oblivious to the whole point that I even was like needed to like understand who I was, because I thought I did, right? I thought I knew myself, and I actually lacked identity at that time. Fast forward a little bit to 2020, I come back to Colorado, and I really believe that God had talked to me about a specific promise. I'm not going to go into details. I don't really feel led to at this point, but over time, I really held on to this promise that I do believe was the Lord's plan. But one thing about God's plan is that, and it's demonstrated in the book of Esther, God does have a plan, but sometimes if the parts don't align, because we all have free will and there are certain parts of the puzzle that have to match up in order for the plan to click, some pieces did not align, and God will raise another. I've done a video on my channel about replacements. If you guys haven't watched that, it was recorded like a while back, but it's on my channel. And I really at that point was just like over it. And I still like didn't completely walk away at that point. I tried to get back involved in church. I tried to like stir my spirit up and like really keep the faith alive, because I felt like I needed to strive. I needed to prove myself to God. I was still, again, carrying a lot of baggage, a lot of unhealed wounds that I did not realize I was carrying. I had no idea. I was completely blind to myself in a lot of ways. And I had thought I had done a lot of healing, because I started this process back in like 2019, 2020, when the Lord was like, let me heal your heart. And I had no idea what that meant or what that was going to entail. And I was like, yeah, sure, God, heal it. I mean, I'm great. I'm fine. Whatever. I wasn't, and I didn't know. And it was a very long process, and it's still a process. He still is working on me and doing things in my heart and in my mind all the time, but I'm way more aware now. But I don't want to digress too far and get off track. I want to kind of like lay it out for you guys, because again, I'm just trusting Holy Spirit to lead me in this. I literally am not even really sure what I'm going to say. So forgive me if it feels a little all over the place, but just try to follow me if you can, because I'm sure that there might be little nuggets along the way that are supposed to speak to you, that I want you to understand that, like, This is not an easy process, and if you've experienced any of these things like I have, then like you're totally not alone, and it's not abnormal. Okay. So anyway, I really was like ready to start living my life, and God had told me to live my life, and at the time I didn't understand what he was saying. I thought he was like, hey girl, go live your life kind of thing. And in a way he was, because I needed to live my life, and I needed to be my authentic self, and I needed to show up in my life in the way he was asking me to, so that certain things could come. And in that season, I did not understand what he was talking about, and I forfeited a lot because I didn't understand. Like, there's a scripture in the word that talks about my people perish for lack of knowledge. And it's not just about like us actually dying or perishing, but I believe like dreams, aspirations, plans, goals, they can also die for lack of knowledge, right? They can also perish and fall away because we just don't know how to do it the right way. And I was very prideful. The Lord even told me before, like, hey, your downfall will be your pride. Like, I had no idea though, but I was blind to it. I didn't realize I was living in pride. I didn't realize I was walking in pride. I just thought I was so like, had it all together, you know, and I was creating some content at that time, and I was sharing the word, and I was still like putting things out there, but behind the scenes, I kind of felt fraudulent because of where my heart was about certain things, and how I was angry about certain things, and I was carrying bitterness and resentment about certain things, right? But on the front side of things, I was like looking like I had my life together, and like I looked like I was, you know, like this strong Christian and this strong follower of Jesus. And I did hear the Lord's voice, and I still did speak, and I still did share, and he would still talk to me and wreck me, and I would be in my word and like all this, but I struggled so much with consistency. I struggled so much with staying on the path that he was asking me to be on, okay? For a really, really, really long time, a really long time. And it has caused a lot of distress in my life that probably could have been avoided, but it's part of my story also. I've made shorts about this. Some of them will be posting soon, but like sometimes I really do believe that a lot of our mistakes that we make are just part of our process, because God has an appointed time, and he knows what's going to happen, and he has a will, and he has all knowledge, and he knows what we're going to have to go through, and what we're going to have to learn, and how long it's going to take us, and all the mistakes we're going to make, and what he actually plans for us to do, and when it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen, and how he's going to put it all together. He already knows all those things. So we don't know. So it might feel like failure to us, but I'm sure like down the road, we can all look back. I know I have, even in this season, looked back on certain things in the past and been like, oh, I needed that. I'm glad I experienced that. Even if it was hard, even if it was painful, even if it was a mistake, I still needed to go through it because it taught me something about myself. And this is integral into my healing process, okay? So let's fast forward a little bit into late 2020. I believe it was like 2022. And late 2021, early 2022. I had a friend of mine, actually two of my friends separately, come to me and talk to me about something that the Lord had shared with them about my life, my situation. And it was two of the same people who had been speaking into the situation for a while, and they were very hesitant to come to me and talk to me about this because they knew it was going to completely wreck me. And it did. And I was super angry with God, and he basically told me like, hey, this that you're standing for, that you're waiting for, that you're praying about, like, I need you to let it go. It's no longer on the table. Like, things have happened where this is no longer what I have for you. I have something else coming. This is one reason why I made a replacement video. I have something else for you coming, but this is no longer it. And that absolutely destroyed me. I was the most angry person. I didn't care. I was just like, whatever. And I still outwardly, even people who were super close to me wouldn't know what was going on behind the scenes with me in my own heart and in my mind. But I was angry. I was very hurt. I felt rejected. I felt forgotten. I felt left behind. I felt like I was cheated. I felt like nothing I did was good enough. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was never going to have what I wanted. I felt like it was just going to be disappointment forever, the rest of my whole life. It really reinforced a lot of my childhood trauma that I had no idea that I carried, and it was totally not healed. And it was very, very hard for me to trust. It was very hard for me to care about a whole lot. Outwardly, though, I still held up the facade, pretty well, I think. I could be wrong, but I think if you asked anybody who was close to me, maybe a few people might have surmised some things. However, probably for the most part, because of how I was living my life outwardly, I was still hearing from the Lord, sharing what I was hearing from the Lord, in some ways being obedient, in some ways being very disobedient. I started kind of like getting back out there in 2023, and was just sort of like, I'm just gonna see how my life goes, kind of dabbling in my own way. By 2024, I was completely rogue. I told the Lord, I had a conversation with him at the very end of 2023. It was like November or December 2023. And I started smoking weed again. And it had been a while. I hadn't smoked in probably about 2 years, because I quit in 2019, right before I moved to North Carolina. I didn't smoke or really even drink. I really don't like to drink alcohol that much. I just don't enjoy it. I used to drink a whole lot. I used to party a lot. I used to be a very huge party girl, always in the clubs, always in the bars, like when I was very young, it was again, menace, okay, a menace. And I will not go into more detail about that right now, but menace. Just, I'm sure you could imagine, what that could have entailed. I was just not a responsible person, and I didn't really care about myself or really much else when I was very young. And so I was just kind of like living for the day and didn't really care too much about anything for, too far off in the future. So anyway, so that mindset of just like extreme, right? So when I moved to North Carolina, I didn't really do anything. I got very involved in church again. I'm sure you can see a pattern here. Got very involved in church again with youth ministry. I had a very tight community of people. We were very close for a while, and then COVID hit, and I loved it. I was like, heck yes, I don't have to talk to people. Like, I get to be at home and like just chilling and hanging out and going, on walks and like doing my own thing and like doing art. Like, I was all about it. Then I traveled back to Colorado. Later that summer, I decided to move back to Colorado. I moved back in September of 2020. And pretty much immediately, as soon as I got back to Colorado and my life started shifting a little bit, I started smoking weed. And then I quit smoking in 2021 in June, and kind of went cold turkey on everything. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, and held that pretty well until like November, December of 2023. Now, 2023, at the end of the year, I had a moment with the Lord, and I had a very vulnerable and raw and honest conversation with him. And basically, it was very freeing for me, because I felt like I, for the first time, was wearing no mask. I was vulnerable. I was very just like honest with him about what I was feeling, what I was thinking, what I was angry about, what I didn't trust anymore, what I was disappointed about, what I was afraid of, like all of it. I mean, it was just kind of like I just bore my whole heart out, okay? And the funny thing is it's like, yes, we stand naked in front of the Lord. That basically is like a metaphorical kind of thing. But this time I was like, and I'm not trying to be graphic, but like that was a literal thing. I felt like I was bare in front of God, and I was just like pouring my heart out to him in this very vulnerable moment. And it was vulnerable, both like metaphorically, literally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. It was very vulnerable. And I felt like for the first time I actually connected with him in a real way that wasn't based on performance, because I was a mess. And in some ways it was freeing, and in some ways I condemned myself, right? Needless to say, I started smoking weed pretty much regularly after that. All through 2024, all through 2025. And there were a couple of months in 2025 where like I stopped for a while and then I picked it back up again. But when I'm saying I was smoking weed, I'm talking like heavy use, like in the morning and then throughout the day, every day. It was not like a once in a while thing. It wasn't like a once in a week. It wasn't even like once a day. It was throughout the day. I would start my morning that way. And now, mind you, the whole time, okay, the whole time I'm still connecting with God. I'm still talking to God. I'm still like very much involved with Him, but I am also being like wildly disobedient in a lot of areas of my life, like a lot of areas of my life, because at the end of 2023, I made a deal with God and told Him, hey, I am tired. I'm tired of trying to do my best. I'm tired of thinking I'm doing everything right, feeling like I'm doing everything right. I wasn't. And not seeing anything change, not seeing your promises come to pass. I don't see the point of this. I think this is kind of stupid. And honestly, like, I think I'm just ready to kind of do things on my own for a while. Like, I'm just going to do what I want. And I'm not going to repress anything. I'm just going to kind of like let it all hang out. I'm going to do exactly what I want, when I want, how I want. And I really felt like the Lord was like, and some people might come at me for this, and that is 100% okay. This is my story, okay? My story might not be the same as yours, and that is 100% okay. But this is for the people who might resonate with where I am coming from. Now, I am not about to say something that's going to justify my behavior. It is an explanation. Okay, let's just get that straight right now. Okay? So, in that moment, I felt like the Lord said, okay. Because we have free will, people. We have free will. And I let Him know. I said, listen, God, like, I'm not going to turn from you. I'm not going to denounce you. I'm not going to, like, act like you're not real. You are very real. I know you're real, but I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm over it. I'm tired of trying to do it your way. I wasn't. And not seeing the fruit that we're supposed to see in our lives. But I did tell Him, I was like, look, I get too far off course and I'm going to ruin my life, or just think like really stupid where it's going to like literally ruin my life, snatch me back. And believe me, He has a couple times snatched me back. But I always had this vision of like this enormous field, okay? And like where it was like a father, who He is our Father, where a father was like kind of standing on the edge of this large, huge meadow field, like huge field, just expansive, and it went on forever. But there was this like father standing there with a little kid running around in the meadow. That was me. And I just felt like never was He not there. Never was He not with me. Now, I told Him straight up, like, I'm going to do things you're not going to like. I'm going to do things that are going to disappoint you, that are going to make you upset. But I feel like I have to do it. I feel like I have to. And for the longest time, He allowed it. I'm not saying He condoned it. I'm not saying that He liked it. I'm not saying that He approved of it. I'm saying He allowed it. Okay? He allowed it. And I believe it's for a reason, because He knew that it was going to bring a bigger purpose. And it was going to bring a testimony about Him and His goodness and my life and everything else. So I'm not saying that it was excusable or that it was okay. I'm just saying this is what happened. Now, last year, 2025, was a humdinger. Okay, I'm sure that many of us can attest to that. There was a lot that happened that was very, very hard. It was a very painful year. But it was also the year that a lot of things shifted and changed in my life. In late March, early April, I started doing shadow work, which I'll talk more about that at another point in time. I started doing shadow work, inner child healing, reparenting, really started to get to know myself, figuring out like why I did what I did, start to learn about my nervous system, start to learn about healing my nervous system, regulating my emotions, learning more about my triggers. Now I, kind of like dabbled in some of this stuff for a while, and what I realized is I had gathered a lot of knowledge. I had collected a lot of concepts, but I didn't know how to walk out what I learned. I didn't know how to apply the information or the knowledge. So I didn't have wisdom in those things. I had knowledge in those things, because wisdom is applied knowledge. I had a lot of knowledge, but I wasn't sure like what to do with it. So I was aware of it to a certain level. I was aware of certain things, but I didn't know what to do with it to actually change things in my own life. Okay. And I didn't necessarily have the courage until a certain point in time to look at myself objectively and just be raw and honest and truthful and be like, I kind of suck. I kind of suck. A lot. And there's a lot of things in my life that I have not been accountable for or been responsible for or been honest about or truthful about with myself, that I got really honest and truthful and brutally honest with myself last year. And it started early, like I said, like in the springtime. You know, I was still very, like, again, heavily smoking, using THC daily. And in some ways, I think it helped me to expand some of the things that I was thinking about and exploring. In some ways, I think it was also helping me cope. And it was also something that I enjoyed. So there were a lot of different layers to this. But I did realize some patterns that I had in my life regarding this particular habit, and I started to see it more like a part of just who I am and how I was, and like I kind of was just like accepting of it and was like, this is just how I am, and this is just part of how I live my life. Okay. Now, as the year moved on and certain other things happened, like certain doors absolutely closed, there were many relationships last year that the door was closed on. The Lord told me that he was going to be removing certain relationships from my life, and that, like, not to be afraid, not to be sad, not to you know, worry about it, that they were being closed for a reason. And that happened pretty swiftly and pretty abruptly and pretty tough. It was some of those doors were really very tough. Some of the doors, however, were not closed completely forever, and that was kind of a confusing thing for me too, because the Lord had talked to me about certain things, like hitting pause almost, right? Because there were certain prayers that I prayed. If you've never prayed a prayer about, Lord, if this person is not supposed to be in my life, close the door, you should, because he will close the door. Okay. I prayed that prayer for many people in my life. Some people he absolutely closed the door on. Some people he was like, I'm not closing this door. It might feel like I'm closing this door, but I'm not. Just, you need to wait. And I'm like, okay. Heard that before. So there was a lot of fear still involved. There was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of hesitation, because there's a part of me that didn't trust God still. Okay. There was a very big part of me that was like, if you want me to believe you, you need to show me. That's not what faith is. Okay. That's pride. And again, he told me that my downfall would be pride. And so he's had to, like, work stuff out of me over time. Okay. Last year, like I said, was really hard, and it was a struggle for me at times to hear the Lord, trust the Lord, want to be with the Lord, want to talk to the Lord, want to read my Bible. And one thing I didn't mention was in 2024, remember, I went rogue late 2023. About a year later, a little bit less than a year later, in like September, October of 2024, right after I moved to Denver, when I came and looked at my house that I'm sitting in right now, it was the 7th house that I looked at, and I didn't even know that I was going to be moving to Denver. Now, he had told me in January of 2024 he wanted me to move to Denver. I did not believe him, because before that I thought I was supposed to go to Amarillo. That fell through. I had prayed about it and was like, if this isn't supposed to happen, Lord, you know, if something's changed or you've changed your mind, or like this was just like a test, I'm not sure, close the door, don't let me do it, because I don't want to go somewhere I'm not supposed to be. Literally the week that I was going down there to sign my lease, I was calling every week, hey, is it still available? I found this killer loft. Hey, is it still available? Yep. Until the week I was supposed to go down there, I called, oh, we just rented it out. Door closed. Again, I was so mad. I was so angry, because I'm like, when is something actually going to, like, go through that you say to me? Like, am I crazy? Am I even, like, hearing you? Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Like, it was just a lot. Okay. And he started talking to me in January about Denver, and I was just like, I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, whatever. So over it. I'm so over hearing things. So I ended up getting an apartment downtown in Colorado Springs instead. And I was like living my downtown brand new micro apartment dream that I absolutely over romanticized because it kind of sucked. And let me tell you something, I was there for 4 months. Only 4 months. I moved 3 times in 2024. Out of the apartment that I was at originally, that I had been living at for like 3.5 years, into an apartment for 4 months, and then into this house in Denver that I purchased in September. Okay? So when I got here, I looked over the back gate and I heard the Lord say to me, "This is for you." And at that point in time, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I was not really interested in the Lord all that much. I was kind of like, whatever. If that's you. But again, it's this weird dichotomy of like, I wasn't interested, but I also still feared him enough to know that like he's real, and like I would still hear his voice and I would still talk to him about stuff. Because remember, I promised him I wouldn't like just not be a part of, you know, that he would not be a part of my life. But I just kind of was just sort of like very, just, I don't know, it was a very weird time. It's even hard for me to put into words, okay? Because I wasn't like completely off, but I wasn't completely in either. I was like very lukewarm. Anyway, I go to the back gate and he's like, "This is for you." And I'm like, whatever. If it is, then it'll happen. I'm not even gonna try to like, whatever. And there were some hiccups and there were some obstacles, but at no time did I ever feel like it was a, hey, this is me trying to say, like, this, don't do this. It was more like, hey, keep pushing forward, overcome this obstacle. I told you this was for you. Now, I believe that the Lord has something for me through this house here. He put me in a very specific location. I looked for a house in a very specific location. Actually, this house matches almost exactly what I had written down in 2015 of the kind of house that I wanted. A house on a corner lot with a little bit of land. It's older. That's a little bit away from the city, but I have city views and I'm close to the city. It literally meets all that criteria, all of it. And one day I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is literally the house that I asked for before I even was walking with the Lord in 2015. Okay, it was like written down. Anyway, so fast forward to me moving here and I'm like, again, rogue. And I remember one day the Lord had been pulling at my heart, come back to me, come back to me, come back to me. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I'm doing my own thing, remember? Do my own thing, remember? Well, finally I was driving one day and it got so loud and he was pushing so heavy on my heart that I remember getting in my car and I was driving down the street and I just screamed at him. I just screamed so loud and I was just like, "What do you want from me?" He said, I want you. I want your heart. I want you to come home to me. I want you to come back. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know how that works. I don't even know if I want that. And he never pushed me. He never forced me. He never pressured me. It was always a very gentle call. It was always a very patient and gentle urge. It was always just a knowing that he's there. And knowing that that's his desire. And knowing that that's what he's asking me. And he let me make my own decision. And over the course of the next few weeks, he was like, I really want you to start reading the Bible. I hadn't read my Bible in probably pretty much the whole year. Maybe like sometime early in the early springtime, maybe like I quit journaling, I quit doing all this stuff because at a certain point I'm like, I don't know what's real. I don't want to write stuff down. I don't want to write something down and think something's going to happen. And then like time goes by and nothing happens. And I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm stupid. I feel like I'm just an idiot who's like listening to voices or like doesn't have any idea of what's really going on. Or I'm just like making these in my own head. Like I'm done. I don't want any of it. I want no part of nothing. Okay. I think I made like 1 or 2 journal entries in early 2024. That's about it. And, I hadn't really read my Bible that much at all. at all. I wasn't interested. And one book that he had me start reading, which is a great one to start in if you are just starting to read your Bible, because there's one chapter for every day. It's in Proverbs. He had me start reading Proverbs. And Proverbs chapter 3 just got me. That was the day. That was the clincher for me. That was the clincher. So this was end of September going into October. Okay, so end of September 2024 going into October, because October 1, I started reading Proverbs chapter 1. Okay, by October the 3rd, this is when it got me, and this is where I really struggled. There's a verse in chapter 3, verses 5 and 6 that says, "Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways trust him, and he will make your path straight." Okay? I didn't want to trust him. Even though I told him I would come back, I was still so scared. I was still so hesitant. I was still so resistant. I just didn't trust that what he had for me was going to be good. I didn't trust that what he was promising me was real. I didn't trust that I could be safe in a relationship with him. I didn't trust that he actually cared for me. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust that I could stick it out. I didn't trust that I would stay committed. I didn't trust that I would want to continue to like live the life he was asking me to. And he was just very patient and gentle with me. And so after that, I again went back into a familiar state of like, okay, well, let me just read my Bible and I'll pray and I'll talk to the Lord, and like I'll start hearing his voice more again and all this kind of stuff. And I started smoking even more weed. Like I said, that lasted for, until late 2025. So 2025, like I said, was a humdinger. It took a lot out of me. It was very difficult. I started having some severe financial problems in 2025. I lost a lot of money on a project. I was in some situations with some people that ended up leading to like I said, an abrupt ending to a very, very long-standing relationship. That was very difficult. It was very hurtful. It was very painful. And I had to start learning how to live my life without that specific influence, because that person had been a giant influence in my life for nearly 2 decades. And so there was just a lot of transition, a lot of change, a lot of, like getting over feeling like I was betrayed, getting over feeling like I was just sort of like used, getting over different feelings. But again, this all goes back to me also learning more about me and myself. So I'm not putting blame on anybody, because I believe, and I'll talk more about this I'm sure later on, I really do believe that like when certain situations or relationships come up in life, that it's really a mirror reflecting back to us, like our own either traumas or triggers or pain or hurt or wounds or growth or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. But I really do believe that like certain cycles had to end, certain relationships had to end, because I was changing. Okay, I was outgrowing certain things, and the Lord was like, okay, you're done with this now. I need to move you on. I need to move you on. I need to move you on. And some of the doors that closed, like I said, were kind of shocking, unexpected. Some of them he kind of gave me a heads up about and told me like ahead of time, like, hey, I'm going to shut some doors that were going to shock you. And they absolutely did. But then some of the doors that I felt like he was saying that he was closing, they weren't closing forever. So there were a few different kinds of things going on there, right? And it was all very confusing. All of it was very confusing. And I think that's one reason why I continued to smoke and just like try to like help myself internalize a lot of what I was experiencing and explain it to myself so that I could like feel better about things. And towards the end of the year, in December, I remember I was at a project and I had gone to a dispensary and picked up something for myself. And I remember going and sitting where I would go and sit, and all of a sudden, like, I hated it. And it was like the third time within 3 days that I had the same reaction. many moons ago, when I was in my early 20s, I remember one time I had a serious panic attack right after smoking, and like I didn't smoke for a little while, and like there were a couple times after that that I kind of felt like I was going to have it again. So I was kind of scared to smoke for a while because I didn't want to have that experience ever again. In December, 3 days in a row, I kind of started feeling like this like panic, and my body started reacting different and started feeling a little bit off and started feeling a little bit weird. And I was like, what is going on? This is not my usual experience. Like normally I could function and literally no one would even know. I mean, I was like high all the time, and I would act the exact same as this. Like no one would know that I was high. Like I acted the same. So to me, it didn't affect me in that way. It almost helped me to just like dial in and function, and like help me to like stay. Maybe it's because I have ADHD, I'm not really sure, but like it helped me to concentrate and focus and get things done. That's why, one reason why I did do it as well, because I felt like it did help me to like take care of the things I need to take care of in life. But honestly, like now that I haven't smoked in 6 months, I know that's not true. That was just something I was telling myself just to kind of like, I think, justify it for me. But anyway, so like I said, I had given this up before, cold turkey, because the Lord had asked me, hey, I don't want you to use THC anymore. I don't want you to do it anymore. I'm like, okay. And before I started smoking again, I took it to him and I was like, do you care? And I really felt like it was my choice. And so I sat there that day and was just kind of like, I don't like how I feel right now. What is going on? This is so weird. But it was the third time in a row. And I felt like, you know what? I think I'm done. Like, I think that I'm done. I'm making the choice this time. I'm not going to continue to do this anymore. And it was for a completely different reason. It was just because I felt like I needed to be done with that season. Like I needed to be done with those things. I needed to be done with the way that I had been living up to that point. There were a lot of things that had happened. Again, it was like the end of the year. A whole lot of stuff happened in 2025. There were so many details that I will not even get into, but like at that point in time, I was really starting to question like what I wanted in my life, how I wanted to live, who I wanted to be, what I felt like I was being called to do and to be, especially after doing so much emotional healing and somatic healing and all this kind of stuff. Like I was changing, and I feel like this was kind of holding me back into a place that I was coming out of and growing out of. And at that point, I started to feel like it was starting to hold me back. And so I decided right then, I was like, okay, I'm done. I didn't even like finish. I just like got rid of it. And basically that was the last time I smoked cold turkey. I mean, I'm talking, I was every day throughout the day, all the time. Okay. Cold turkey. Now I mention all that because I feel like being a voice now on social media and talking about God, I don't want there to be any secrets. I don't want there to be any like if I want to confess who I am and what I'm about, because I don't ever want there to be something that's like that could be brought up against me to invalidate what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is what God's asking me to say. Now, if you watched a video I made yesterday, it was talking about how the enemy wants to make a mockery of God, and he does that through God's people, right? And I don't want to be that for the Lord. I don't want to be a vehicle of mockery for God. Like, I would rather be honest and clear and upfront, because I think it's going to help people too. But I also want to say it because, like, I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be, and I don't pretend to be. And I will tell you right now, the last couple of months, I would probably say the last like 2 months, maybe. So this is June, April. Yeah, maybe like March, April-ish. And it's not all the time, but I cannot tell you the number of times that all of a sudden I'm like, God, I just really want to smoke. I just really want to smoke weed so bad. I haven't, okay? But the temptation has absolutely been there. Absolutely, it's been there. I've had dreams about it. I've had like, there are other temptations too that like I've had dreams about, and that I feel like is like these couple of things in my life that I've struggled with over time that like have really come up the last few months. And I believe it's because God is calling me higher. He is calling me to rise. He is asking me to start stepping out and sharing my life. He gave me this beautiful analogy probably back in like January or February about, I had this dream, and it was about brownies, and these beautiful, I don't really bake. I bake very rarely. These beautiful brownies were sitting on the counter, like very like social media worthy brownies, right? Aesthetic. But in the sink were all these like really dirty dishes, but it was a deep sink, and I didn't want anybody to see the dirty dishes. And it was like the Lord spoke to me when I asked him to interpret the dream. He was like, you've always wanted people to see the beautiful brownies on the counter, but now I'm going to bring you to a place in time, which is now, okay, months later, when I've had a lot of other healing and a lot of other things happen in my life, and I would have not been I wasn't the person then that I am now, and I wouldn't have been ready then to do what I'm doing right the second, because I had to go through some more refinement. And I'm not saying that I'm totally refined, that I'm out of the woods, or I completely finished, or that I'm totally baked in the way of like being completely done, okay? All I'm saying is this. I'm saying that there was a point in time where God gave me an idea about something, gave me clarification about something, gave me insight, wisdom, and knowledge about something, but it wasn't time yet to release it, okay? So that might be for somebody out there to hear that. It might not be time. It might not have been time then, but it might be time now. Or maybe it's not time now, but it will be time later, okay? But the beautiful brownies on the counter has been this thing that he keeps bringing up to me. And this morning when I was on my walk, he was like, I want you to talk about the brownies on the counter. And that's what inspired this video, is because I want to be honest about the dirty dishes in the sink that have created the beautiful brownies on the counter, okay? I want to be honest about what is a real struggle can be, and like what I've even struggled with, and how like just pressing on and like realizing, I needed healing bad. I was done ruining relationships. I was done sabotaging myself. I was done just ruining things for myself. I was done running away. I was done being scared. I was done resisting. I was done fighting. I was done doing things to myself out of fear, out of like low self-esteem, out of lack of confidence, out of disappointment, out of fear, out of failure, out of like not believing, out of just kind of like being in this place where God is like, I'm calling you higher. I'm calling you out of this place that you keep going back to because it's familiar. And a lot of that happened once I started doing, like I said, shadow work and nervous system healing and emotional regulation. And it started about a year ago, and it's taken some time to get to a place where I do know who I am now, and I am confident in who I am, and I am aware of who I am, and I know now what to do to make the changes. I'm not just collecting concepts. Now I'm walking it out. Now I'm understanding and learning and practicing how to walk it out. And that's what I want to bring to this. That's what I want to bring to you, is like, it's possible to know how to walk it out, learn how to walk it out. And if I can share how I'm doing that, doesn't mean that it has to look the same for you. Doesn't have to look the same at all. You have your own way. You have your own flavor. You have your own path. You have your own relationship with God. You have your own promise. You have your own purpose. You have your own plan. But we are connected through the body of Christ and through the kingdom of God. And I know that he is using me, and it might not reach everybody, but I do believe that it's going to reach who it's supposed to. This channel will reach the people it is supposed to reach. The right people will be brought to this channel to be encouraged, to be supported, to be understood, to be seen, to be heard, to be known. Like, I have no idea what's going to be or what's going to come out of all of this, but I do know what he's leading me to do right now in this moment, in this season, and it's to share. And it's to share. It's not to harp. It's not to tell you how you should do it. It's not to admonish. It's not to act like I'm better, because I'm absolutely not. It is only to come in vulnerability and truth and just say, hey, this is what I've struggled with. This is what I've done. This is what's helped me. This is what I've learned along the way. This is what I understand. This is what's helped me. I think I already said that maybe. I don't know. He's helped me a lot. But I will say, like, it is not easy to follow him. And at the end of last year, I will say this last little thing. At the end of last year, when I finished, you know, right after I quit smoking weed and I had been gone for a while, working out of town. And when I got back to my house, I was gone for like 2-ish months. Okay, it was a while. When I got back here, it was hard. It was hard. Okay, financially, super rough. I lost a lot of money on that project. I was living out of town, not being paid, and basically paying to be there with money that I did not have. There were many, many days where I did not have money for food, but I would buy weed. That was the problem, you know. When I'm talking like I was buying weed, I'm like spending like $10 every couple of days. It wasn't like, you know, where I'm like buying tons and tons and tons and like just sitting at home like getting high all day long. It wasn't like that. It was constant throughout the day, but it was not to like a point where, I'm not trying to excuse it, I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say. To me, one joint every 2 days, while it was constant throughout the day, I still would say like it's a lot of use, but I was still like trying to be responsible, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I was still trying to be responsible because I didn't want to be that kind of person anyways, where I was just like, you know, spending all my money on weed, because it's a lot of like stupid ways to spend your money, honestly. So I was trying to like keep it at a minimum and still get like the biggest bang for my buck, I guess, out of it. So I was still like, the very little money that I did have, I was stretching it as far as I could. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I was trying to be a good steward of my finances, even in that way, when I was trying to keep it very, very lean. But I would still make that a priority. That's what I'm trying to say. I was still making that a priority in my life. There might have been days where it was like, you know, that's what I had, because I didn't have money for food, right? But at least I was like, at least I have this, and that will sustain me, and I'll be okay. I can like at least make it through with that. At least I have something. That was like my mentality about it. And when I got home and the Lord started to talk to me about things and really start to show me things that I needed to learn, and had me let go of some things that I needed to let go of, He took me into a major season, a very intense, major season of consequence, where I'm going to tell you, He talks about in His word that if you do not humble yourself, He will humble you. I'm telling you right now, He will humble you. He will do it. He will humble you. Because He humbled me. And He allowed me to see every part of me that was wounded, messy, needing healing, causing damage, causing havoc, wrecking things, taking me to patterns that were destructive, keeping me out of alignment, taking me out of position. Like, He really stripped me of everything. Everything I could think of, He stripped me. So then I had no vices because I was not smoking anymore. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. I didn't have the money to do any of that anyways. I literally was like thinking about having to go to a food bank to get groceries at points. Luckily that didn't happen, but I was literally at the point of like, I do not have the resources that I need to make it like day to day, although I'm here. In those moments, I'm like very stretched. So I didn't even have the extra money at that point to even like do it if I wanted to. It's not why I didn't do it, because I'd already decided before I came back here that I was done, but it just is how things rolled out, right? So it was like He strips me of everything. I had no vices to fall back on. I had to go through all of that just like completely present. Okay, there was nothing for me to escape with. There was nothing for me to run to. There was nothing for me. I was in a season of isolation. I didn't talk to people for months. Like, I was very much alone. I was very much just me and the Lord, and He was just working on my heart, working on my mind, working on my spirit, helping me see clearly, helping me understand like what I needed to take away from last season, what I need to apply to the coming season, what I needed to understand about myself and about Him. There was a lot. Okay, so coming into 2026 was no easy task, because even right before the new year started, he had me clear out a bunch of different things, break soul ties, repent for things, let go of things, come out of agreement with things, mindsets, like things that I thought were promised that weren't, and just like holding on to situations and like circumstances and people and all these things. Like he really like took everything away and was like, I'm going to bring everything back to your life that belongs. And this is what he's been doing over the last few months. Even right now, I'm in a season of solitude, preparation. He again has told me, like, I am going to bring back you. I don't want you to do certain things. He's telling me, like, I'm not asking you to do certain things. I'm asking you to do specific things. And those specific things are purposeful. And they're for a reason, because I'm doing other things that you don't know about, and it's none of your business, basically. It's not your biz. You just need to be open to what I'm doing and be responsive to what I'm doing and receive what I'm bringing and know that I'm bringing certain things, but I'm also not letting you manufacture things at this point in time. I've interpreted too many times. I've made things happen on my own too many times, and then that leads to confusion and questioning of like, is this real? Is this not? Is this you? Is this me? In this moment, he's like, there's no more of that. There's no more of that. You know who I am. You know who you are. Now you know. Now you've learned. Now you've seen. Now you've grown. Now you've healed. And again, I'm not completely like, yes, I've made it and I've arrived, but I have come a long way. And I have learned a lot of hard lessons. And I have understood that God is sovereign, and that he is real, and that he does love me, and he loves you, and he has a plan, and he has a purpose. And even if mistakes have come or disappointments have come and like things have felt very crazy or confusing or anything, there is a purpose and a reason. And a lot of times, just like I had to do for myself, I had to look back and say, ugh, I was actually super disobedient. No wonder things happened the way that they did. I wanted to blame God. I wanted to blame other people. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to carry it around with the chip on my shoulder and have a reason and justify to be like, ugh, whatever. I wanted to not trust. I wanted to feel bad. I wanted to like have something to be like, there's a reason why. I wanted blame. I wanted to complain. But I'm telling you right now, if this is resonating with you at all, that is not your portion. It is not what God has for you. That is actually a scheme and a tactic of the enemy to keep you small, to keep you stuck, to keep you angry and bitter and make you sick. Let it go. The Lord has so much for us. We just have to get on board. We just have to actually believe it. We have to answer the call for what he's asking us to do. We have to lay things down. We have to allow him to work. And the whole thing with like me laying down the weed on my own, it was my decision. So I didn't feel like for the first time that like God was asking me to do something. That's why it was so easy for me to pick it up before. This time it was my choice. I chose it. I made that choice. And it's important to me to stand by what I chose, because now I understand, at least on some level, I understand what God's asking of me. And I understand that I cannot, with good conscience, know and live a double lifestyle anymore. I can't come on here and talk to you guys about what I'm talking about and then be on my own time smoking weed. I can't do that. They don't align. It doesn't make sense. I feel like it invalidates what I'm saying. I think that it would take away from the message. I think that it would take away from the validity of like what I'm actually sharing, because it's not pure. It's not clear. It's not unadulterated. It's not unfiltered. Or I guess it's not filtered. You know what I'm trying to say? There's nothing. Me talking to you now, there's nothing standing between. There's nothing standing between. There's no fog. There's no, and I say that it's kind of funny that I'm hearing myself even say that, because I never felt that way. I always felt pretty clear. Again, I told you, I could be high all day and like no one would know. No one would know. So unless you were with me and saw me do it, you wouldn't know. And so, but I knew. And that was the most important thing, I think. And that's one thing I learned is like, I didn't used to respect myself. I didn't used to hold myself in high regard. I didn't really care about myself. And now that has changed so much because I know who God made me to be. I know what he's asking me to do. I know who he's calling me. I know where he's planning, at least on some level, to take me. And that's important to me, for me to show up in the way that makes me feel proud and that makes me feel like I can trust myself and I can trust what I'm sharing with you, and that there's no weird stuff happening where like, oh God, if someone found out, then, you know what I mean? So I'm going to end it here. This is a very long video. I honestly am very blessed if you've stayed this entire time. I really pray that this has blessed you. Like I said, I might end up sharing more about my testimony because there are many other things that have brought me to the place that I'm at now, especially when it comes to, like I said, like the nervous system, healing, different modalities with that, the shadow work, reparenting, inner child work, things like that. That I do think that it's valuable information and I do want to share more about that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to make some content about that and explain some of the things that helped me, what I've learned through it. Be able to answer some questions about, different things if you guys have them. But I think at this point I've said enough for right now, and I just want to encourage you that if like you're struggling like I have been, and like or maybe you've given up something like I have, and like you've been feeling tempted lately to kind of pick it back up, just know it's probably because you're close to something. You're close to a breakthrough, you're close to transitioning into a new season, you're close to an old door closing, you're close to entering a different timeline, you're close to becoming the next level of yourself, another version of yourself. It could be part of your nervous system and your ego trying to fight for safety and like fight for its place and keep you stuck where you've been before, because newness and uncertainty is scary and unsafe. And so like our brains, what our brains are meant to do is to keep us safe. And so it could be that, it could be spiritual, it could be a combination of things. There's a lot there, right? But if you've been dealing with that, feeling like you're being attacked in that way or tempted in that way, just know, don't give in. And if you have given in, repent, forgive yourself, pick yourself back up again. Jesus loves you. He's not mad at you. He already knew it was going to happen. Okay? He already knew it was part of your plan, part of your process. Just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Don't hold it against yourself. Know that you're a person, you're human. You're going to make mistakes. He's not expecting you to be perfect. He's just expecting you to show up and to put your best foot forward. And he does want your obedience, like he wants my obedience, but he knows that we are not robots, that we are not perfect. We're not going to do it perfectly. If we can look at our mistakes as opportunities to grow and learn, and to take away like, ooh, that really sucked that time. Like, I did not like that I did that. And like, explore why, more than just like, oh God, I can't ever do anything I say I'm going to do, and like beat yourself up. But that's the wrong idea. You want to go the opposite way and be curious and explorative, not condemning and accusing and judgmental. Okay. So I hope you guys are blessed by this. I really appreciate everyone who's joined lately. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and listening to all this, and I pray this blesses somebody out there. And I'm sure that I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Okay, so be blessed and see you later.